Hello everybody and welcome back to another Tableau Tip Tuesday, the series where we put out a short video highlighting some of Tableau's more obscure capabilities. From beginner to expert, this is a great series for you to pick up those hidden gems to take your skills to a new level. Today we have a fun episode planned for you guys today. We're just going to go through my 10 favorite time-saving tips and tricks, and we're talking about actual builds. I have thoughts in the future of doing one that's specific to dashboards, one that's specific to publishing, so go ahead and let me know if that's something that you guys would like to see as well. For now, we're going to be focusing on the build specifically. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to work here. So if I go over here to sheet 1, the first one that we have for you guys is, first of all, you can customize your view. You can move around any of your pages or shelves just to customize your view a little bit more. And you can also click an arrow to hide a card if it's not something that you're going to be using frequently. Now obviously our structure shelf is something that we probably want shown, so if we'd like to add that back, we can go to our worksheets, show cards, and we can add that card back. Now it is going to add it back to where it was removed from, but again, you're free to move that around afterwards as you see fit. Second we have for you guys is just kind of a funny one. This one took me about 30 minutes of Googling to find what exactly I had done here. But if we click this little opposing caret button here on the top of my data pane, it's just going to collapse my data pane down to my status bar right here where we can expand it back. It does give you a little bit more real estate, but generally speaking, I'm just using the presentation mode if I need that extra real estate, if I'm presenting directly out of Tableau or something of that nature. But again, to each their own. If you would like to collapse that data pane, just remind yourself to expand it from your status bar. Alright, next are a couple of my favorite keyboard shortcuts here. So if we make a quick view right here, and we'll expand that just so we can see it. One of my favorites here is Control W, the orientation of the chart. You can see that it's just actively swapping both of my axes, so whatever fields that are on one will appear on the other. You can do this with maps, you can do this with bar charts, scatter plots to get different levels of analyses, as well as planning for the orientation of your eventual dashboard. What do you think looks better? All right. Next, if you're frustrated with this sheet and you just need to start over, I would recommend you duplicate it first, but you can always go Alt-Shift-Backspace in order to clear that chart. And then just remember that your Control-Z or your undo can still bring that back, so you're not at risk of actually eliminating anything important there. Alright, next one we have for you guys is that if we have a chart right here of category and segment and sales, we can drag another copy of sales out to label so that we can kind of get a label at the end of our bar here. Very common practice with pie charts. Sometimes you want labels in maps. I find it a lot easier just to hold the Control key and duplicate the existing copy of sales, because that will now duplicate the field. Now if I Control Z that away, if I do not press Control, that's just going to move sales to label and we'll be left with a text table here. So duplicating that field is a great time saver just to give yourself a couple extra clicks there, or a couple less clicks. Alright, next will be the right click drag. So if we take another sheet right here, we can see that if we left click drag, it's going to go whatever the default is for that specific field. So in this case, it is a discrete dimension. However, if we take a measure out here and we right-click drag it, you can see that it brings up an aggregation menu prior to dropping that field. So the better you know your data, the more you're going to be able to select this correctly at the outset. But it's nice that you don't have to drop your field up here, go into that field to change its aggregation. You can do that right at the outset. Now for me, this becomes especially useful when you're dealing with things like dates. If I right-click drag my date, you can see that we have our discrete date parts organized here and our continuous date values are organized in blue and green respectively. And you can just go right to that continuous date to start your time series. One last reason this is especially useful is for aggregating dimensions here. So if I take my category to rows right there, now I can take my market and right-click drag it on over to text so that I can aggregate that dimension just right on the spot right there, and we can get that market level analysis per category in there. All right, next we have workbook formatting. So if you're a teacher like me, this one's especially useful for you because in my format menu, when I'm presenting, oftentimes the stock size of the font is not going to be big enough. It's good enough once you publish it to an appropriate screen, but I want to format my entire workbook to just have slightly larger font right here. So you can edit all the different fonts, make that a little bit bigger, and I don't have to make those edits going all the way through my sheets. It should edit my labels. As you can see, I have a larger label right here from formatting the entire workbook. Great stuff right there. All right, for showing filters here, let's get back to my data pane by closing my format window. Showing filters, if I wanted to have a market filter here, I can drag it on my filters and I can filter it for my workers. But in order to show it to my workers, I have to right click and show that filter to get it on that shelf. Now, if I know beforehand that I want them to interact with that, I can right click market and just show that filter directly. Once again, just saving you guys a couple of clicks and keeping you in the workflow. All right, next we have our View Data button. So up here on the top of my data pane, we'll see this View Data icon. This button is littered everywhere throughout Tableau. It's a really great means of validating calculations, reminding yourself of granularity or cardinality, or just familiarizing yourself with one of what might be many data sets that you work with on a daily basis here. So we can always view our data. We can also export that data if we would like to open it in Excel. Now this is not going to save any server credentials or anything like that. It'll be a static snapshot of whatever your sample is, but it is a great way to work with numbers in possibly a different program that you use alongside Tableau. Now you can also do that by selecting marks and just exporting the data for those specific marks. And you can check it against your full data. So a lot of different options for you guys right there. I would recommend you use this as much as you can, just to be sure about your work. Nothing worse than sending incorrect numbers up to the C-suite. Then you're in trouble, right? All right, the last one we have for you guys is going to be kind of a fun one here. So I just have the national parks latitude and longitude pulled up here, just open source stuff right here. We can actually copy and paste this data directly into Tableau, which is, again, just going to make it a whole lot easier to connect to it. Now, since there is HTML formatting here, I have taken the time just to pop it on into Tableau first here with the paste values so that we don't get that HTML code. But now we should just be able to highlight all this, Control C for copy, head on back over to Tableau. On a new sheet, we can press Control V, and it's going to use that sheet to place a text table, and we'll see a clipboard data source now in our data pane. Now, since we were lucky enough that our column headers were named latitude and longitude, that's another step that I don't even need to do. So right from a Control C, Control V, this is now just ready for mapping. We can map all of our national parks in the US. If you place them on the correct shelves, press Control W there to swap them. We've now just mapped all of our national parks in the US. One last bonus tip for you guys here is now that we have a couple of sheets and a couple of dashboards put together, you can actually right click that sheet to color coordinate it. So I would try and get this standardized across your team. For example, red and blue can go on the red and blue dashboard. So if I take sheet 3 and hold Control, select sheet 4, I can make both of those blue because I'm planning for them to go on a blue dashboard. Maybe something like yellow needs validation and brown needs QA analyzing and purple is ready for production, or whatever system you guys come up for. It's a great way for you just to open a workbook and know exactly what's going on, where you left off, where other people need help, just by learning that color coordination system. All right, that's it for today. Those are our time-saving techniques with regards to builds. Remember, if you want to see one with regards to calculations, stories, dashboards, let me know about that, and I would be happy to put that together for you guys.